Alright, welcome y'all. This is section 1 of the start of the problem. I'm going to start reading this off, so we're just going to dive into it. Section 1, start of a problem. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, something bad had happened to me along with the other children my age. The place it had happened was in Ogden, Kansas, 331 8th Street, in the backyard of a house off South Park Street and 8th Street. House that's next to a bridge along the wood line. There is a report of this had happened in 1997 about with SRS and Raleigh County Police Department of those who were arrested. The two young men named goes by Mark Marshall and Trevor Stroda weren't from around and came from a different place. One of them being 18 and the other just close to turning 18 years of age were both charged as adults on account of rape on children while using and while caught in the act. There was a little park at the end of 7th Street next to South Park Street. Just some sand and a tractor tire, half of it buried in some sand. Next to a wood line, a private salvage yard or private property. It's where most kids would go out to play. They approached us, said that they ran out of gas or it was a minor repair. They were manipulating and luring us to go help them, which they think that we could fix it, very ensuring that we could. Body movements of arms reaching out like a right wing position in basketball or like hurdling a cows. They changed the subject as an interest in looking at the bus, camper house, or on wheels or a clubhouse. It was only 3 or 4 houses down on South Park Street on 8th Street, behind 331 8th Street. The house by the bridge at the end of the street that everybody in the neighborhood knew, Scott, his daughter who was mentally disabled, and wife who had passed on a time ago. Rest in peace. I was the only one telling the kids while walking with them that they are strangers, and haven't you learned that in school? Stranger danger, let's go back, I spoke. But they said that they were much bigger than us, the rest of the kids, and the 2 men. With that said, the 2 men added calming assurance of words to say that we are just helping people in need. What we are doing is a good deed. I was on the right end, meaning 4 of us kids were side by side. I was next to the 4-year-old boy who was on my left. Next to him was another boy around my age with a 4-year-old girl at the other end. Trevor on the left with those kids and Mark on the right. The boy and the girl were together. I have never seen them before. They came out of the wood line and to also mention they were talking as expecting those 2 men, saying that we can't escape or that some were not on the list. Doesn't matter as to planned who is being targeted or to join the corrupt government organization. That you'll learn that later on. Also, he said he would watch me all the time, saying he's always there. His behavior was in confused state. Then to agree that he hides to awkward feeling of seeing everything while, The 4-year-old boy. Knowing somewhat of their 4-year-old boy because I've seen him once in a while as well as rumors and talks about by the other kids or parents. He was spotted at my school on the outside of the fence of the playground when the other kids and I would play. Weird, but to understand, I asked him once or twice about following me during confronting him when school ended that day. To describing in details of the question I asked him about following, I guess of my natural pure heart and problem solving kids naturally attract. Then I asked if he watched and seen the 3 fights I got into during that day, and that they were all bullies in our school. Yes, he said, and he said, and he was told to keep an eye on me. Only me? ? From who he didn't say as I asked, your parents? Also, he would say that he watched me all the time, saying he's always there. His behavior was a confused state, then to agree that he hides to an awkward feeling of seeing everything while at home, conversations to him not giving details. I had no clue whatsoever. I would have to explain it to him as what hiding meant, as I thought nonsense to even point towards the trees and bushes, because I was unaware most times, as I caught him several times through the time of him being around. No, all I can say is, was I a target? How? Could he really hide that well? Being well known of surroundings while never plays with other kids and while at home. Of course, I was young and I thought nothing of it as to later on to figure out it was more than what he didn't know or what he was trying to say. No, this is just to keep in mind as my thoughts goes. When I'm coming home, when I am coming or going to school and back to my house, he would follow basically something about government while walking home from school. As to walking home, I passed by a very close friend named Corey and his girlfriend Christina near the soon-to-be Korean church with connections that ties to a corrupt organization later on. My friend was sent by his new girlfriend to fight me. Corey walked up to me and the boy, whispering, saying to me to say that I forfeit and that I am a coward. He walked away saying he won. I said I got into 3 fights that day and exhausted, but I'll add you to the list as the 4th fight. Corey wasn't a violent person at all. He considered me to be his best friend as our parents got along. Reaching 7th Street and walking past my trailer to walk with the boy to walk him home. I talked about the rumors on his parents are strict and he was adopted. A short pause from him as I questioned him about it. To his response was surprised and I was told. I knew him from rumors and from time to time seen him walking around near his home for about 4 months time frame. In addition to that, we talked about his mother as pointed towards a direction to where he lived. That his mother is his mother, but the other one was not, meaning a man or stepfather we hear from standing on 7th Street when they were arguing. Looking towards the front end of the trailer as his mother, who I could see, now visible, was halfway out the side deck of the sliding door glass, as it would be called, the back door of a trailer house or mobile home. These trailers were at the end, about 4 of them sideways from the rest on 7th Street. The driveway came in from South Park Street, from the alleyway between 8th Street and 7th Street. Seeing his mother, I could see a sort of resemblance, but did not see the other person. I said, he asked me how I knew, because if you didn't notice while I was pointing everywhere that there are kids that come out to play every day at trailer park homes or homes in the neighborhood. Military base right next to Ogden, Kansas as well. This was prior to going to that park that day where the boys came, meaning Mark and Trevor. He said that his parents would fight. Anyways, Mark and Trevor, as we went to that park at the end of the road, they approached us with the 2 unknown kids that came out of the wood lines that I had never seen before. Then to be forced in a way towards the bus, so I said while approaching the house, 331 on 8th Street, that I knew that man. They said he wasn't home and I responded back. He is home and that he is always there like Scott had said, the man that lives there. They said they knocked on the door and looked through the windows. Scott was the homeowner who lives there. They did change the subject as they knew him and that they were camping out in his backyard all weekend. That they said that they needed to get out from behind that man's yard before he comes home because they didn't know him, as they ran out of gas from broken and then had to push it up there without a sight. To push it up there out of sight. to them clearly making it a point that no one is there. I did knock on the door a lot, and the idea of that, I also started looking through the windows next to the door I was knocking on. Because Mark said he knocked and looked through all the windows to him not being there, while no answers all door to Mark constantly pestering in every way possible to guide us to the bus. The other kids went inside the bus, and a good comparison to it is a short bus, mostly white, with light brown or brown lettering or brown lettering and of trims on it. The bus in the backyard of Scott's house. They went to the bus entrance as the last one to enter and to be like a big brother as he was younger than I was. The 4-year-old, I was cautious about those two older guys as I went inside. Trevor sat near the back opposite of the driver's side, second seat near to the end of the bus, with the girl and the other boys doing inappropriate things with Trevor while he used to meth. The other one across from me and the 4-year-old standing halfway out in the aisle in the seat behind the one I was sitting. Where I was sitting was the passenger side near the front as second seating to avoid hassle from Mark's inappropriate demands. Also, it was for escape or survival tactics when he moves to the back. Mark across from me in the other seat. Mark saying, "Isn't this the coolest thing you've ever seen?" And how it was like a house that moves to it was like an RV. A house on wheels to also say a clubhouse. Tried to explain it to us to joining their personal life, but then those kids in the back with Trevor spoke that they already knew and they were excited about it as finally happening. Trevor was communicating, saying like an interview as Mark agreed as a job. We would have to get a job application later on in life when we grow up, so it's all like that. Also saying that we need to go through an initiation like orientation. So as the obvious of Trevor and what he was doing with those two kids, as far as I knew, what they wanted us to do. I started to question Mark about it as confirming what we have to do because the only thing in my mind was stranger danger and what I've learned in school. Answering my question but needed to explain the clubhouse rules and way. As I expected what I learned in school, I heard enough. For the only thing constantly being worried about, and I didn't want a part of it. Mark wanted me to hear him out as to pre-planned life. Mark talked about a drug and that they were using and because I questioned him on it, making you feel awesome, smarter, and faster, as Trevor was over-fascinating himself with those two little kids. Superhuman-like strength, like 10 times an average human being, while also feeling good. It's like candy and have to wait, he told me. Said that because we were too young and have to wait. Trevor and him talked as I questioned him about the drug instead to avoid doing what they wanted us to do. I also questioned ages from 5 to 7 and even 10 to 14 years old to be able to use the drug. In addition to that, to ask until we do that sexual thing, as Candy was mentioned again, as to saying that Trevor's private part was like candy, like a lollipop. The other kids were encouraging as not to get into details, but I will. And if a kid's mature at their age, depending on maturity level. Because of Trevor and Mark as somewhat I seen Mark with the pipe and Trevor's pipe, to me looking at Trevor and back as I questioned of seeing it. Mark pulls out a Rose Bowl with meth out of his left side pocket. I didn't want to be a part of it as before I was saying. To topic on vehicle problem to gas is empty and saying someone will be here as they're on their way, but it was a lie. To steer back on track to Mark saying once again, all I'm saying is to hear me out. Because basically a planned out life, a good life, than to have a hard life, safe and protected by the authorities, a better life with power of protection, basically without choice of what you'll be, and at least you be a success, but being managed, compared to having a hard life and no life at all, a loose end. Human trafficking. To check with Mark and Trevor, asked him about having a hand towel, and Mark went back there. Meanwhile, I acted fast for a chance to talk to the 4-year-old boy. I lowered my voice to him about wanting to get out of here and be saved, that I'll help him, just hold on to my hand. He said, how could we get out? They're bigger than us, and that the bus door was not going to open. Then he explains there is a lever and a grown person or someone big has to do it. I was only concerned of the door as far as from the start as entering it and watching how wore out it was after inside seeing him close it. I told him that the bus door is weak and broken, that I could squeeze out with ease due to fold in the bus door with middle gap opening was an inch to an inch and a half, while flimsy looking. Told him to trust me on this and that he agreed. Mark comes back. He tried to persuade as saying to think of a lollipop and like it's candy. Just think of it like that and it's just like it. About club and clubhouse rules as trying to force initiation, said after Trevor saying hurry up. The first attempt to escape. Then as Trevor was asking about meth and his bowl is empty for more to Mark going back there again. I might not get another chance like this one, and it was time to make a break for it or escape. I was at the last to second step while Mark is guarding and bullying now. I did notice the door to get a better angle on it as heavier than I thought. In addition to that, the thoughts of rescuing that boy, I forgot to say. But of course, he won and I gave it my all while slightly pressing on the door and examining the door gap that's in between the door as it folds in, meaning then to going back onto the bus, escorted by Mark, that if I cannonballed from the top of the stairs as the looks of the flimsy door would be my best shot and to save that boy. Mark walks me back, shoving and pushing me back between the aisles of the back rest of the first seat. Now standing on one seat to the other as Mark would block off the entrance. I was a foot or closer from Mark, and the 4-year-old boy was behind me or halfway out in the aisles to seating. The door is locked. He is bigger than me and said I was going nowhere. Mark hunched over looking at me, to me being struck very hard across my face as well as my face turned to the side, meaning as in with his hand and struck my face. To not let us go nowhere as Trevor and Mark was communicating back and forth, but while Trevor couldn't move as to being busy. I see another escape route, but it was going to be tricky because it was going through the gap under his legs and out the bus door, then to launch out by throwing my body at and through the door should do it. With how things looked with that bus door, I turned to the boy and said, "Are you still with me to get out of here?" The 4-year-old boy was cautious and said that he wanted to stay, to listen to them, and he wants to have a better life. and that we should hear them out. I told him they're going to rape you. He responded that he doesn't mind and that everything they are saying makes sense because that's because that's the problems his parents was always arguing about. He was scared naturally at the escape plan failed. I would have tried to save them all, but the others were too far back there. As I was talking to him to make sure, as well as needing cooperation like insurance of 110%, sure of saving his life, sharing my plans with him to grabbing on with a wrist lock holding hands. Mark said, "You know, I can hear everything you're saying. It's not going to work." I then turned my head towards him and I replied, "I know," and I wasn't whispering to be correct while turning back. I told the four-year-old if he wanted to be saved, as I could save him, guaranteed, to assure him that I would do all the work and my hands have my full body lock, that I would do that for him. To get into details on lock is explained best to a ledge or a mountain situation. If the falling person is locked in, and slipping further to death, meaning bodies to the end point, if both people do not release, then both are going to fall down. Distraction tactics. I knew naturally that my body and strength as well as my heart that I could, without thinking back then, to a few times to ensure that I could save him. Finally, after the third time I asked, as he said yes, I told him to stick out his arm and hand, also never to let go. But he can hear us, replied back. I know, just trust me and I will do all the work. That even dragging him off as half my size, I would think that he would fly out of there, if you know what I mean. But he was worried it was not going to work, but he was aboard with my plan. The plan was set. The only plan I didn't say but kept in mind was distraction. When I was talking or during talking, I gunned it, as talking as a distraction tactic, with me grabbing his wrist fast and didn't feel locked on by him. But I wasn't thinking because I knew he was listening and I wasn't stupid. As I went under and between his legs, he dropped down between us, to him trying to lift back up from awkwardness of him being racked or body position as being stuck. Mark back against mine, complicating the capture. Something snagged like a fishing hook under a rock, but more like an anchor stuck under a mountain as second pull. I tried to pull without looking, then to look back after the second pull. That's when I noticed he is being racked and him trying to balance himself like a balance board. Surprisingly, the 4-year-old boy wasn't working with me but to slam his other hand on the backrest of the seat and his foot on a metal bracket of the seating mount, trying to hold on to me with the brace as foreseeing what was holding me back. Hold on to him, Mark said, and I see what the problem was. I ripped out of his arms and wrist lock. Mark's head crouching down, looking under and between his legs at me. Mark then jumps completely over the 4-year-old as he did at a point before to look at me from under and between his legs, to a behavior of actions of shocked, basically flipping out. I wrote that. Mark was closing in on me as I jumped through myself by missing all steps on the bus as to a cannonball effect off the diving board. Mark did try to grab me and to hold the lever closed while bracing himself, but it didn't work. Then to launch himself towards me as I was out. The 4-year-old boy I tried to save almost cost me my life. But just as I predicted that my body would force me out, those wore-out old bus doors. 1997. Outside of the bus. Mark stood at the bus door with both hands on each side of the door trimmed, then saying, "Come back," that he's faster. He switched his hand closest to the front of the bus to both hands on one side for vantage or for leverage, as on the trim, and the other one on the vertical support rail, then both hands on trims as positioning. I was standing 5 feet away from the bus door and him. He then talked about he is bigger than me and come back, as using talk as a distraction to slingshot his body out and to try to grab me. Slipping out of his fingertips, but did not firmly grab a hold of me. He yelled, "Stop!" Now I was facing in the opposite direction and head turned in a sort of looking back as to shoulder, using my peripherals as a wing guard would do in a basketball game. Trevor said, "What's the problem?" Basically because I was a little kid. While Trevor still molesting those 2 kids that he said Mark needed to get me back on the bus and no loose ends. Also what the boss would do, and Mark knew that. I know that," he responded back. Mark saying that he kills little kids and babies, many of them, and that Trevor knew that. In addition to, Trevor already knows what Mark is capable of doing. Then to manipulating words after saying all that, plus he's bigger, faster, stronger, and it would be easy. Also said if I don't, that he would, and drive me on the bus. I told him good luck and that I am faster, as well as I would scream the word help while running. Without saying out loud, I also had another idea of distraction and making myself a lot faster by slipping out of the shoes as a past childhood friend would race, and I was the fastest kid to add. I kept it quiet so I could survive. I also questioned for him to explain what loose end was, as that Trevor mentioned. After he explains that, Mark said no, and that he was not trying to do that, just don't tell. I told him I wouldn't and that I would walk back home. He said, "How do I know or trust you?" Also told me while trying to be nice to come back on the bus and don't tell anybody. Letting some guards down to explain, I would walk back, and that was enough trust. In addition to that, as I was trying to explain it while Mark jumped out at me and way more than last time and barely got me. I doubled back to 2 steps in running to stop as I felt the graze of wind on my hand to start running a few steps. He yelled, "Please stop," and again, like a wing guard, head tilted at shoulder, I was in a frozen spot like a track star at a start line, but not professional, but was at the edge at this point. "Please stop, don't run and scream," he asked, just to note that it is about 3 or 5 more times I faced death or close to being murdered. By the first or second attempts and expression with behaviors, I knew how dangerous it was. Mark begging for me to stop and power off. Power on. Mark begging, game mode. Mark begging for me to stop and hearing him out. I told him that I will run the next time without looking back. If you make one step or even move a hair, I will. Mark was stunned, without words, frozen solid. Short pause to me speaking again. Told him to back up, to me speaking again to make clear. Told him to back all the way up to the bus door. He steps 1 or 2 steps backwards, to his 1 foot a step at a time, one after the other, and being stubborn. I said again, reinforcing words as for serious talk. He backed that foot in as a 10-foot. I spoke up once more, back up. He said he couldn't go back any further. How can I trust you or believe that I can trust you not to tell? Mark asked. I told him that I had heard from the other kids and the 4-year-old boy. Trevor asking again about what is taking so long and that he can't handle a little kid. Mark responded back, trying to explain what he had just heard. Trevor was still on the loose end subject. Please don't tell, and that Mark was taking my words, but still wasn't good enough. Again, to say, come back on the bus. A quick pause to him, changing back on to topic, asking me to turn all the way around and face him. I turned sideway a little and calmly. He relaxed, but on guard as a wing guard in basketball. He wanted me to promise him to politely say, and with emotions to please face him, that he wouldn't try it again as he believes me. I said I wasn't worried, and from a pause to face him directly, sticking out his hand and extending a pinky to say pinky promise. I wasn't doing that because it was weird or too girly. Something a mother or father might do for a child, as a parent would feel bad for not showing up to a school play or game. Military salute. Boy Scout salute. To spit on it and do a handshake. I said, I don't do that. It's gross. He tried saying it was what men and grown men do, that to close a deal or make promises. Mark noticed that he wasn't going to get contact or could move from the bus doors. He said on Scout's honor. He was confused and asked me that I don't know the salute. Oh, I said, I got one better than that, an army salute. So I saluted while waiting and holding it. Mark was shocked and confused. He didn't know what that was. For me, it was what he asked for. He began speaking that a Scout's honor is with 2 fingers on the forehead. I told him I don't know what that is. Isn't the salute better? I did question him of knowing the U.S. Army and America. He said no, then to say he knew and said that they were not allowed to and against the USA. Also supporting Boy Scout is the way. It's a covenant and secret sworn brotherhood. He was surprised that I didn't even know about Boy Scouts. It hits me as to remember a friend in school told me that they build bridges and tie knots and ropes. So I said that to Mark, and he said it's a lot more to it than that. I was still holding the Army salute this whole time. I said I was a part of the military for the greatest place on earth, the United States of America. As a military child, or explaining, I would do it on a military salute, and he could do it on a Scout's honor thing. He demanded the 2-finger salute as well, insisted it, and wouldn't give in. A short pause, and I eased off the salute. When I dropped my guard to do it, he lashes his body out, grabs a hold of my left shoulder and t-shirt to lose his grip and slip off my t-shirt as I turned running and then lifting my feet out of my shoes to use my bare feet like cleats for a soccer game. I was good at it on even gravel roads like the alleyway to add when I raced other kids in my past as they would be shocked. My shoes were about around 12 feet from the bus, leaving my shoes behind as the best defense as he yelled louder because of distances. I was already between 8th and 7th Street alleyway on the South Park Street, heading toward 7th Street when Mark yells, "Don't tell anybody," and saying, are these your shoes? Did you lose your shoes? Did you forget your shoes? Are you coming back to get them? I said they're mine and he could keep them. Mark was confused about my shoes, so my plan worked out even better than I thought. I stopped running when I heard him, and because of the distances, I continued to walk, saying I know of the shoes, and he responded, "Please don't tell," and I said, "I already told you I won't, but my life was in danger." Started walking at the alleyway, Mark. As I was walking down 7th Street, my father was in the street with other adults talking. As I approached them to walk up to and passing my father and to outburst and interrupting him speaking, so I overtold him while seeing the other adults extremely curious, meaning my peripherals of their reactions. Describing very well spoken in behaviors of just happening and serious at my tone, not mad, just informing kind of way. The other guy spoke while shocked, saying, "Wait, did you just hear what he's saying?" My father heard choppy bits of what I was saying because he was in the middle of talking or explaining something. He had an expression of being interrupted, like complications because of me speaking. He said, "What? Don't cause problems." The other guy said, "Did you hear what he said, and that it was important," as he was shocked on how smart or well I spoke on natural outbursts in my very informative way. Almost there. Something I couldn't do again without thinking and slowly speaking with missing details. It was really a good and fast-spoken start to finish. I really never come to my father with problems, really, very rare, meaning I didn't make troubles is why. So I said I know that why I kept walking for me saying, "When have you ever seen me or come to you about a problem to say to you?" The only reason why I am telling you this is because if you ever find me missing one morning, pointing at the trailer house window of my bedroom, and I'm not in my room or bed one morning, it's because I was a loose end, whatever that means. Then that caught my father's attention, as well as the two other grown men. From the start, telling them what happened, I told them nice and slowly while thinking on what happened. My father was in the army, and he was very concerned right away. Without a word, he walked off. Returning moments later with his phone in hand, I asked him if he contacted the army. He paused and said yeah. He let them know, but he contacted SRS. That SRS is good enough, he said. It's hot with the window up. You know what? Infamous Nicholas. This is just the story, the beginning story of my life. I want to put this into more sections. There's probably like 20 more sections, and some sections are twice bigger than this. Probably like 500 to 1,000 page book. That was only 20 pages if you were printed out. So 20 pages out of 1,000. Think about that. So I'm gonna go into like series and stuff, but there are some things that's on there that if this was a movie and it was made, it would be crazy. And not crazy, but it would be it would be the biggest thing in the world. That's what it would be. You know what? I'm going to say here and I'll pray. Thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that you have given to us and the food to nourish our bodies and all the prayers to be heard. That those ones out there, some out there, are going through some rough times. It's hard because they got lots of present moment tasks or complications right at hand to not think. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, I like you to keep an eye, but I know that things will get better, and I know we're all doing the best we can. Amen. Infamous Nicholas signing out. Don't forget to go on my YouTube channel, hit that like and subscribe button. I only got 11 subscribers. It's kind of sad compared to the views. Let's hit this like button, let's hit the view button, let's hit the subscribe button, let's hit all kinds of buttons, okay? 41 minutes, and I'm going to sign out here. I will do a audio version, because if you notice that this version here, it went through a complete overhaul. And before that, I close out, there is some little thing that I would say. What is the unexpected changes to happen? Let's get this part. Then, unexpected changes to happen with both my parents, like they were, when my dad was working at, and my mother with the Korean church and all that, and then all the tickets that are false and wrongdoing needs to be all now stuff. But I'm gonna go from start to finish, so you guys will hear on the second story later on. Peace.